So, I have never read any Sylvia Plath before, and I realized that that is actually a crime. So, I decided to finally start the Bell Jar, and I won't lie, sometimes when I go into a book that is very well read and well loved and spoken highly of, I go into it a little wary that I might not like it. Like it's so hyped up that I'm worried I won't like it. And that is not the experience I'm having with this at all, thankfully. I have found this so beautifully written, and I'm not done with it yet, but I just feel like Sylvia Plath's language in this book, her descriptive language, is so succinct, yet it's also clear and very tasteful at the same time. Just so artistically done. Like you can tell her craft as a writer is very honed. And I also find it to be very humanizing. And an example of this is in chapter 7. Let me find it. So, in chapter 7, the infamous fig tree example, which, if you don't know, is basically the protagonist in the book is thinking about all the options she has in her life. Like she could go to college or do this or do that, and each option or life path is sort of a fig on a fig tree, and she's looking up at the fig tree and she's paralyzed by decision fatigue, I guess, and can't make a choice. And while she's standing there looking at all the figs, they're withering away and dying because she's not choosing anything. So, kind of existential. And she's explaining that here and here. And then literally here, maybe 3 paragraphs later, she says, "I don't know what I ate, but I felt immensely better after the first mouthful. It occurred to me that my vision of the fig tree and all the fat figs that withered and fell to earth might well have arisen from the profound void of an empty stomach." I found that so humanizing. Like, here she is having a very existential, thoughtful, worrisome moment. And then later she eats and she's like, maybe I was taking things a little too seriously in that moment. And I just found that so relatable. And on that topic too, I do think this book is really timeless. It was published 60 years ago. But apart from mentions of like a typewriter or things like that, the actual content and the thoughts of the protagonist, I feel like, are so timeless and still so relatable even now. I also... Can you hear the cicadas? They're so loud. It's high summer. What can I say? I will say my favorite chapter so far is chapter 10. Again, very humanizing and relatable chapter, but she's sort of just thinking about what she wants to do with her life. And she says, "Then I decided I would spend the summer writing a novel." And then the next 2 pages, the protagonist is working on her novel. Then she says, "I decided I would put off the novel until I had gone to Europe and had a lover." Because she thinks she needs to live more life and have more experiences before she can write a truly good novel. A few lines later, she says, "Then I thought I might put off college for a year and apprentice myself to a pottery maker, or work my way to Germany and be a waitress until I was bilingual. Then plan after plan started leaping through my head like a family of scatty rabbits." I feel like that is still such a universal thought process, and yeah, I really, really like this so far. I did, though, start this book before The Bell Jar, Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This is nonfiction, and typically when I read nonfiction, I like to also have a fiction book on deck ready to read because I'm not always in the mood or the mindset to read nonfiction. So I picked this up first, read, I think, the first 3 chapters, the first 80 pages, and then I picked this one up. And because it's so small, because it's such a short book, and because I'm so engaged with it right now, I think I just want to fully finish this one before I get back into this one. The cicadas are unreal.
Last chapter. Finished.
So I finished The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and now that I'm done, I just feel a bit overwhelmed with like, how do you talk about a book that so many people have already talked about? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna say anything new or say something that no one else has said before. So I don't know, that makes it kind of intimidating to talk about all of a sudden. I didn't feel that way earlier when I was talking about this, but now that I've finished it, I do sort of have that feeling of what can I even say about it? But what I will say, I do think this was a 5-star read for me, but a tentative 5-star. So sometimes you have a 5-star where you're like, yes, that was absolutely amazing. I have no qualms about calling it a 5-star. This one, I do have one qualm about giving it a 5-star, and that's sometimes, now, this was not a big part of the book at all, but occasionally when she was describing people, I feel like she said things, she worded things in a way that she would not have been able to get away with that in today's age. Maybe that's just a product of how they spoke back then, because this was published in the 60s. So obviously times were very different then, and maybe that's why she said some of the things that she said. But that's my only qualm about giving it a 5-star. I think as far as form, craft, execution, this was incredible. It made me want to write fiction. For me personally, I feel like that's a really good marker of good writing is the writing is so good that I want to try. Like I want to make something beautiful like that. Also, after reading the book, I really would like to read Sylvia Plath's poetry, and I do luckily already have a book of her poetry, so perfect. I can get started on that at any point. And I do think Sylvia Plath did such a pristine job with narrating exactly what it's like to be quote unquote okay and then to go down into the depths of not okay and then in some ways come back out and become okay again to an extent. I think she portrayed that so perfectly and realistically in a way that I didn't even know was possible. She is just so incredible, and obviously it's just sad in so many ways that she died so young. I mean, partly because she had two children that she left behind, but from a literature standpoint, which maybe this is selfish, but from a literature standpoint, just the works that she could have produced if she would have lived longer than she did. Obviously, the biggest loss was her life, and the people around her who knew her personally and lost her. But again, selfishly, I'm also thinking we could have had some really, really incredible literature, especially I'm sure with age she would have gotten even more incredible. But yes, I finished The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, and I'm probably going to write in my book journal about that now. I also have to write about another book that I finished before this. It's called Waiting on a Friend by Natalie Adler. I won't talk about that right now, but I'll do a reading wrap up soon for my summer reads, and I'll talk about it in that video. Happy Saturday. It's the weekend now, and I think today is going to be mostly a writing day. I do definitely want to catch up on my journal first. Thankfully, I caught up on my reading journal or my book journal last night, so that's squared away. I'm going to square away my journaling next, and then I'm probably going to work on a writing project, which is I guess where all of my creative writing energy goes. And yeah, I guess I'll explain more about that when we actually get to it. But for now, I'm just gonna catch up on my journaling. Okay, I fully caught up on my journaling. I had to write for the past few pages. So this summer, I've sort of been writing something for every single day, which I haven't done in a really long time, like daily journaling. And I'm trying to keep that up as long as I can. So I needed to catch up on like the past 3 days, but I did that. And next, I want to work on my actual writing project, like the main thing that I spend creative energy on. And basically, so back in March, one moment, let me get something. So, back in March, I picked up this book, which I had owned for a while. I think I had tried to read it once many years ago and then just didn't finish it, I guess. Maybe I wasn't interested at the time, but this March of 2026, I picked this book up and absolutely devoured it, and now I'm like a devotee of Mary Oliver. This is New and Selected Poems, Volume 1 by Mary Oliver, and I had never before been interested in poetry. I had always been a fiction type reader. Even since childhood, it's always been fiction for me. But this made me deeply appreciate and resonate with poetry in a way that I never had before. And almost immediately after starting this book, I started writing poetry of my own. I guess with the more poems that I wrote, the more that I thought this could become a collection, which sounds, I know that sounds maybe a little ridiculous because it's been 4 months. Like, it's July right now. I've been writing poetry for 4 months, and I'm already like, I want to write a collection, and I do want to get it published. I do. I just feel silly saying that because I know how short of a time span 4 months is, so it feels audacious of me at this point in my, I guess, poetry writing to already feel like I want to publish something. But right now, I write a lot of poems about summer or the weather or bugs or fruit. I'm telling you, eating a big plate of fruit for breakfast is like a religious experience for me, and I've written multiple poems just about fruit or just about eating fruit for breakfast. Um, I like to write poems about the natural world and things that I notice when I'm on walks, and sometimes even like imagined experiences of me in a forest or underwater. So, honestly, you can see just by the content of my poems, probably, or what I'm drawn to writing about, there's obviously an influence of Mary Oliver there. I can't remember if I said this already. I've tried to read a few other poets apart from Mary Oliver, but just for me personally, nobody has come close so far. What I am going to do today is try to sit down and write a couple poems, but I think I might also try to find somewhere to submit a few poems to. Like I said earlier, it is a little audacious of me to be writing poetry for so little amount of time and to already be like, I'm going to try to submit it for publication. But I guess I can't find a good reason to not do that. So I'm like, let's just do it and see where it takes us. There is a website. Let me see if I can find it so I can show you. Okay, so here's the website. It's called duotrope.com, and Duosuma is the submission manager, so you do have to make an account, but here are the genres that they allow. I click on poetry because that's what I'm trying to submit, and then it will only show me open submissions that are requesting poetry. And you can just go through and click on them and see if you're interested in submitting, and it tells you how to submit. And yeah, that's what I've been using so far. So, just for some context, you can see the titles of the poems I'm submitting today. I found a publication that will let me submit 6, which is more than usual. Most of them usually only let you do 3 at a time, but the titles are The Wave Churner, yes, that is one word on purpose, Until the Drifting, Camping Trip, To Emulate Our Life Giver, this is also one word on purpose, A Deliciously Golden Soup, and Pond Turnover. I am the author. And I submitted those to Willow's Wept Review. They are accepting 6 submissions. So go submit something if you have some poems. Hello, it is nighttime now, and I'm about to read some more of Women Who Run with the Wolves. I was reading this today by the pool, and I got to page 95. So I'm gonna read a little bit more of that before I go to sleep, and then tomorrow, I've been doing this virtual poetry workshop for 6 weeks. So the last class is tomorrow morning, and yeah, I'm excited to do that. Write some poetry and be with other people who like to write. And yeah, but for now, I'm just gonna read and then head to bed. Okay, I just finished the workshop, and just for context, Peggy Robles Alvarado is the leader of the workshop, and I was really lucky to get to go to New York this summer. And while I was there, they had this poetry reading event at Bryant Park, and I went to it, and Peggy was there performing some of her work, and I was obviously very moved by it. Bought her book, got her to sign it for me, and then she asked me if I was a writer, and I was like, oh, gulp. Yes, I'm a writer. She signed it for me. Um, and she told me about this workshop that she was doing, and it was 6 sessions, but the first one had already happened, but I could still come to the other 5. And she invited me to do it. It's virtual, and so I signed up right away, and that's sort of how I got to be in this workshop. Yeah, today was the last session. It's been really, really good. I mentioned this earlier, I think, but a lot of the poems I write are about like trees or bodies of water or bugs or animals, rabbits. But when I'm in these sessions and she leads the conversation and gives certain prompts, it brings completely different poems out of me, like rage poems or poems about my personal history and things that caused me pain when I was a child. Like, very different poems that somehow she brings out of me, which I don't know, feels notable and magical somehow. But yeah, not only that, not only is it like a very emotional and cathartic experience, but also she introduced me to a lot of poetic forms that I didn't know about before, which I think is really valuable, especially as a beginning poet, like an emerging poet. Um, Especially, let's see, the pantoum, the palindrome, which I had heard of a palindrome, I just never knew that you could really do it in poetic form. And then today she showed us the duplex form, which was invented by Jericho Brown, who I'm pretty sure won the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 2020. And yeah, it's just so awesome because not only does she bring very emotional and raw poems out of me, but from a form standpoint and a craft standpoint, she's also teaching me a lot about the foundation of poetry and like the way you can execute poetry. So I found that so valuable. And yeah, the workshop's over, so I'm probably going to spend a big chunk of today reading Women Who Run with the Wolves. If you like poetry, please recommend me some of your favorite poets or poems. I am on the lookout for that for sure. Otherwise, I think I'm going to end the vlog here. I'm just going to go read this book probably for the rest of the day and maybe write some more poems at some point as well. Also, if you're here this long, thank you, but also I have a question for you. Pause one moment. So, my grandmother gave me these two lamps, which are very beautiful, but I don't know if they work here where I have them. This corner is very green, and those are green too, but it's not my usual type of green, so I can't really tell if it's working there or not. So, if you have any thoughts about that, I would love to hear them. I kind of want to keep them together though, because I do have two of them, so they're a pair. I feel like it looks nice to keep them together. I just don't know if they work well here. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!